July 16, 2025. Board of Finance meeting for town Madison is now in session. Please stand for pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
The Republic stands one nation,
under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. The motion to approve the minutes from June 25th, 2025. So, can I get a second? John, any corrections or amendments? I'll just see any. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstention, that motion carried. Chair's comments. Hello, everyone. That's it. Anybody from the finance committee would like to comment? Start with John with you to my right.
Thank you. No specific comments, although I will say I'm glad to see David is here because I know we're going to have some questions about one of the item agendas. So
Feel free.
I'll leave it at that. Thank you. When we get to that particular item.
Yeah.
Thank you, David.
No major comments. I just want to remind people of the library. I'm a library liaison and they are having their used book sale starting either today or tomorrow, but through Saturday.
One of the other things, don't forget the Rotary has their carnival. It starts today, I believe.
Yes.
Jude, do you have anything you'd like to say?
The Facilities Committee continues to meet and is moving forward on its work. It's one of the items on the agenda tonight. And that's it.
Thank you, John.
No, I'm good. I know I'm going to have some discussion on the $150,000 appropriation, so I'll wait for that.
Not a problem.
Thank you.
And I just ask questions. I know you're bringing them down, but I'm going to allow that. All right. Thanks, everyone. Our first select woman is here, Peggy.
No, just that we had a very successful 4th of July holiday. We were one of the few towns that has 3 major events over the 4th of July, and I think everything went smoothly. And then when you throw in a brief thunderstorm that created quite a lot of havoc the night before the parade, you might be seeing some overtime issues in the budget because we were all hands on deck to get roads cleared and make sure that the parade operating people would get to the parade, because it was quite astounding actually, because it hit all our collector roads, so several of them. So it really impacted travel throughout town that evening. So hats off to our public service, and fire, police, ambulance, all of that, and our public works department are doing a great job. Getting us through that.
Citizens' comments. Anybody from the public would like to speak? I don't know if there's anybody.
No one online.
Second time, third time, would be non-public information session closed. New business, item 7, discuss and take action to accept a reoccurring annual grant amount of up to $17,500 from Workforce Alliance to provide the fund for the NYFS summer employment program, which was approved by the Board of Selectmen July 7, 2025. Can I get that in the form of a motion, please? Motion by Katie, can I get a second? Second by Matt. Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Abstention? That motion carries. Item 8, discuss and take action to approve releasing the funds from the plan reserve in an amount not to exceed $150,000 for the ad hoc facilities committee to fund proposed RFPs for feasibility and planning studies of town assets approved by the Board of Selectmen on July 7, 2025. Can I get that in the form of a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Katie, can I get a second by Matt? We are open for discussion.
So we have a slide to show, this should have been in your packet. It was presented to the Board of Selectmen, so I think it would be helpful.
Can everybody see that virtually too?
Yes.
And
You want to walk us through it?
and I think if David could
Yeah.
explain kind of as chair of the facilities committee, the thinking behind this, and then I'm happy to answer any questions about funding for the Ryerson demolition and all that.
So Dave, why don't you walk us through this and we'll hold the questions to the end unless it's something paramount that they want to ask.
Sure, thank you. So we've been working now for about 1.5 years as the committee. And we began our work by doing a full inventory of all the town's properties and buildings in order to kind of get an understanding of where things are holistically. there's a interim report that we presented back in March.
Yep, March.
That's on the town website under our facilities committee, so you can read through our initial findings of the interim report that we presented to the board of selectmen back in March. What was a couple of the things that came out of that that were high priorities for us was that the town owns over 1,217 acres of land in Madison, and 82 parcels. if my memory serves correctly. So we actually try to bisect those parcels and divide them up in terms of things that are like at the end of the road, things that are like a quarter of an acre, things that are just nothing, and also things that are with buildings. It's about 280 acres, I think, that have buildings on the town campus. So then we focused on properties that were 5 acres and above and just kind of in the middle of town and different areas of the town that were there, as well as some of the properties that were either underutilized or where people were having where town functions were not sufficient. We also obviously have to be considerate of what was going on with the new school being, Neck River School being built and the vacancy of Ryerson, Jeffrey, and the town campus learning center. Then we kind of held a little bit of a pause until after the academy vote took place. And since then, we've kind of ramped up again to rethink about where are some of the functions that were desired in the academy construction, where are there potential areas where they could go, as well as what we should be doing with the vacant spaces. Because we'll have about 25% of the space be vacant in the town after the new school opens, which is a fairly significant amount of vacant space. We also have been active as part of the Academy Discussion Committee and also as part of the Surf Club master plan. So we're kind of integrating all these pieces under one umbrella. And we feel that the next step would be to bring in some consultants to give us some understanding of 3 key areas. The first area is really understanding of Jeffrey and Ryerson, and how those could be readapted for either office spaces or public spaces or spaces that could be used for things like using family services that were scheduled to go into the academy. We wanted to look at both of those because we also wanted to understand how access to various other parcels that are adjacent and vacant could be accessed, especially through Ryerson. There's a significant amount of land that's vacant that the town owns between Ryerson and Brown, and that's kind of adjacent to what that area. But it's landlocked. The only access is through Ryerson properties. So we wanted to look at that. We felt that would be, those 2 buildings made some degree of sense to look at. Focus is really heavily on the Jeffrey building, not as much on the Ryerson building. But we do think are there potential opportunities to save some of the Ryerson building and use it for certain types of town functions, storage functions, potentially, maybe some public works functions or something like that you could store and put other functions there. The second area that we wanted to look at is Memorial Town Hall. Now, originally Memorial Town Hall was built as a theater, basically a congregating space. That was a major function in the academy kind of built. But there's also spaces in there. So that building was basically, they built a building within the building. So we wanted to take a look at that space and see if that can be brought back to its original structure and its original functions. And that could bring more of the dynamic and goals that were part of the academy things back to the green. So that was the second piece. And the third piece was that we identified between 200 and 300 acres of land that were fairly large pieces of land that we think might be able to be developed. The reason we wanted to look at that is if those could be actually developed either for commercial, residential, or affordable housing, those could potentially generate tax revenue to offset some of the other capital requirements that we have. So those are the three separate RFPs, and they're very, very different types of skill sets. So for the Memorial Town Hall, we need more of an architectural skill set. And I was getting some advice from, there was back in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, I was on the committee that was thinking about renovating Memorial Town Hall. And instead they decided to buy the town campus. So we actually, I contacted some of the subsequent architects that were part of that discussion and got some feedback from them about the kind of scope and level. We think that's in I think that's in a $10,000 to $15,000 range. It's relatively small, not a number. It's just feasibility of whether something can be done to bring it back to and how many seats you could have. It could be brought back to a theater, given the additions to the building, the elevator, those kinds of things. The Ryerson and Jeffrey look is, as I said, most heavily on the Jeffrey kind of function, will probably go between $50,000 and $60,000, we think. And basically, you're going to have more of a space planner that's going to be looking at that with some architectural, as well as one of the people on our committee is Nick Conti, who's been the project manager for the Neck River School. So he has a lot of skills and understands some of the construction costs and those kinds of things. So we can get some feasibility in terms of order of magnitude kind of costs on that, on those two buildings. And then finally, the vacant land is more of a town planner kind of function. Excuse me. So it's a different kind of function, and we think that's because there's so many parcels there that we're looking at. It's probably in the order of magnitude of 75,000. So if you add those three pieces together, they come up to be on $150,000 to do those things. But I think what our goal is we're in process of writing the RFPs now. Our goal is to get the RFPs out this summer. We're going simultaneously on all projects in the fall, so that we're complementing the RFP that just went out and was awarded for the Slip Club. And then we can kind of tie these pieces together so we can come back with plans this winter, late winter, early spring.
Thanks, Dave. So I'm gonna open it up for questions, and if you want to, sure, someone step in about.
Sure. Well, I know there have been some questions about the demolition of Ryerson, that right now the new school building committee, or the Neck River building committee now, is in the process of getting an estimate for demolition. They've hired a consultant. The money is still there in the budget. There was about $1.2 million, allocated. It was just a general allocation in their budget. We also have been told that it is likely to be significantly higher than what's budgeted in there. So, more than double. So, but that process is undertaking. We'll have that information. The money is still residing there, the 1.2 or 3 that was held. And actually, we'll be getting an update in August from Neck River about where they're coming out their budget, but they have adequate funds to cover that. So.
I'm gonna open it up. I'm assuming we're gonna do the planning first before we do a demolition or anything like that, right? That would make sense in terms of,
Yeah.
there's part of me that says you can get, progress can be impeded by planning, because if that's all you do, but that's not the case. I think for most of our people don't plan and fail, they fail to plan. So I'm assuming we're gonna do planning first to see what makes sense, and then what our options are, and then go forward there. I was amazed at 82 parcels at 1,200 acres, I believe you said, about an average of 15 acres per parcel. That is amazing that you have the town owns that much. It's an average, David. I'm not the, I know some are much bigger and some are smaller, but I'm gonna open up for questions on virtually first. And John, I'm gonna begin with you because you're in this my screen above Jude here on my screen. Go ahead.
Okay, my apologies. I'm having issues with my phone, so I hope I'm clear. You can hear me fine?
Yep. Hear you, no problem.
Okay. I was a little surprised to see this because, I thought Ryerson was already a done deal, that it was coming down. And my question is, have any departments firmly said, oh yeah, we'd like to move to Jeffrey if it's feasible? At that point, I'd probably be more open to this, but it seems a little premature to me unless we have some departments that have a, a specific need and we think it looks like it might work. I'd be more inclined to, be open to something like this. But again, those are just my thoughts. And if there have been those discussions, I guess I just either missed them or I was not aware.
Sure. Well, what we're doing is looking at the needs and then lining up all the different options. So the departments don't say, hey, I think we should go to Ryerson, to use the space. What this exercise is to say, here are the needs, which we have that assessment that was done by DRA. There were a lot of numerous departments that have space needs. We know there's a lot of issues with that building, and we're probably gonna end up deciding, and I think, that there's not a way to configure it in a way that makes sense, but there are, for example, the town garage. That is a defined need. We right now have a project that's probably over $7 million in the CIP that would be trying to do what we want to do at a limited site. So we're looking at all different options. That doesn't mean it's gonna end up at Ryerson, but what if you kept some of Ryerson for, bays or something? I'm not an architect, I don't know what the possibilities are. Storage has been another big issue. Communication towers, could this be attached to a communication tower up there because there's cell service issues? So this isn't probably preserving the whole building to repurpose for town offices. It's more like, could you, bifurcate, do a partial demolition or something like that? And it's not the primary focus. Jeffrey is the primary focus for
Right, and
this.
the other thing that was raised, so it's that the bus garage is not, the bus station is inadequate in terms of number of space and the kind of space for the drivers and for repair and that kind of stuff. So, the thinking is what can we move and where, and given kind of geographic location in particular of Jeffrey within the context of basically we got a hub of all of our educational system in one part of town, tying in other functions that have educational components may make some sense. And so we wanted to look at those kinds of options and see if you can kind of reconfigure things in a way that makes sense and may free up other space for other things. Like I said, Youth and Family Services has a major shortfall of space, and it's one of the areas that is really a high pressure kind of place. There's a lot of renovation requirements that are going to be needed here at the Arts Farm. So, maybe that's the right thing to do, but we want to understand that. If we think about, what happens to some of the other different buildings in town, and if we, Memorial Town Hall, for example, if that's potential to be restored into its original design, that all of a sudden suggests there's two or three other functions that have to then move out of that area and go someplace else. So you start, this is really, I guess the biggest feedback we've gotten as a committee is that we need to look at this holistically rather than individual project at a time. And the biggest hassle and difficulty we've had in the town over time, and I've been involved with this going back to the 80s, early 90s, is that everything is looked at as a singular individual project rather than a comprehensive view. And that this is really the driver to help us get that comprehensive view. Because if we don't know what's feasible in the building, how can we come to it?
Knowing that, we're looking at a $3 million price tag just to take it down too, so.
I understand that, but to me, if you take it down and then you realize later on you could have used part of it, doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So I think it's back to, operating silos as opposed to. Jude, do you have anything you want to comment or question?
No, I guess I would comment that I've been a liaison to the facilities committee for several months now. I feel like I'm still catching up sometimes, but my questions have been answered pretty much at those meetings. And I feel that the committee has been working very hard and very diligently at this overwhelming project, size of the project. But I do agree that it has to be looked at holistically. It wouldn't make sense to do it in any other fashion, really.
Katie?
No, I think this has been great. Thank you for all of the hard work that you and the committee have done. Super important. I've made no secret of the fact that when I used to be on the Board of Education, we really told the community that Ryerson was part of the referendum, not that it was a specific line item in the question, but that the idea was that that land would be demolished, mostly to avoid an academy situation, obviously. However, I think it's always better to measure twice and cut once. And if this gives us an opportunity to really, I don't want to study that building anymore. But if there's a storage opportunity that a department's needing or something, it would be a shame to demolish and or sell off that land and not have done the due diligence to know what the opportunities are that exist.
It's important, as one of our cornerstones, is we feel adjacencies on properties is extremely important. So we do not think the Ryerson property should ever be town requirements. And if anything, we're not talking about any type of educational function there. We're really talking about some other type of much simpler function, if you would. And several of the selectmen have raised the whole point of saying, what happens if we need a new school in the future? This is a way of putting a placeholder that says you can use the space productively for a few years until it's has to happen in 10 or 20 years.
I think it's really important. And as far as Jeffrey goes, again, I was involved in years and years and years of studying that building. And I do think that there are a number of good years left in there with some investment, obviously. But I guess my question that is now just popped out of my head about that school. Oh, is the portables that are on there. I know that when I was on the Board of Ed and we talked about it, we talked about one of the things that would or should be done almost or very quickly after the building went back to the town was removing the portables and just focusing on the main part of the building. Has that been part of your discussion?
That's probably the direction that we're heading
Okay.
as well. Yeah, I think that's our general feeling, but.
Because I know they're way beyond their life expectancy.
Yeah, but you have to understand that the square footage of the Jeffrey School is larger than the town campus.
Sure.
So, I mean, it's a huge opportunity when you put it in that context and in terms of where things could be and what can be accomplished. I should also mention, the Learning Center here on the town campus, we're all in agreement that those are probably well beyond their useful life. But that's another one, that's part of the land assessment that we want to say, how could that be used for?
Right.
Could that be used potentially for, like, for example, one of the discussions in the surf book is that if they have to slide the building back, that with the parking lot removed, and that means it's going to displace the grounds function. So where can we put the grounds function? So now we're starting to think about, is it Ryerson or is it a Ridge Road or is it a place here in the town? On campus. So we're looking at all those options. We don't have any finalized decisions at all. But
We need the
our goal
information
is
to do
to
that.
get information and to prioritize what can be the kind of functions that can be used in each of these spaces. And then try to match it. I used before, this is a giant Lego. Every time we look at it, we're going to get a different shape. So what we just have to do is right now we're at a point of defining what are the blocks.
More like Jane.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate that, and thank you for all your hard work.
Yeah. Thank you. David, excellent presentation. Thank you. Yesterday morning, I have to say that I basically had no idea what this item 8 really meant, and I watched your presentations before starting, which was I thought it's very clear. So thank you for that. I have three questions. And I think the first one is rather basic, but it needs to be addressed. And that is, should we spend $150,000 on the studies if we have, I'm asking, do we have people in-house that are current town employees who can provide that function without us spending that money? That's my first question.
I'm not sure we do.
I don't-
I've not really seen that. I do think that we're saying, we're asking if this is a budget number, so it's up to.
Right.
Not to exceed, and obviously, we're gonna be working on a scope of work on, and we wanna subdivide it into the three projects, so we're keeping them in three separate buckets, even though it's global, we're trying to do it that way. But I don't think, I mean, we certainly have planning, but Erin Mannix has been involved in our work. I think she's gonna be more of an advisor on this work rather than someone who can actually execute some of these things. But they are very specific functions, so there are
So essentially,
terms.
we're saying that we don't have that expertise in-house, which is appropriate. And we need to have a consultant or consultants come in and give us a plan for all of these three areas that you spoke of, which is fine. What exactly do you see the consultants? My second question is, what will the composition of the consultants be? Would it be a team of architects, engineers, landscape architects, people who will actually make specific recommendations and say, we think your first priority should be do this with the Ryerson property? So can you speak to that?
Yeah, so each of the three areas are going to require different skills. The Memorial Town Hall is going to be much more of an architectural focus and a construction manager kind of focus in terms of the feasibility of being able to deconstruct what's in there and then reconstruct as well. Because one of the core questions is, if they look at it and say, in the first few $1,000s, so you're going to get 50 seats out of this thing, and it's a non-starter. Then we know we move on, so we end the project. That's the one. The Jeffrey and Ryerson are more of a space plan type function with some architecture. That I suspect. I've done a fair amount of this in my professional career, so those would be. These are not the types of spaces they would be applicable for this type of functions. These are spaces that can be subdivided or repurposed. Those are the types of things that would be out there. It would deal with access issues, it would deal with things. But we do know that there are certain types of hypotheticals that we want to look at, as youth and family services, for example. Our potential offices for Board of Ed, putting the Board of Ed next to the building schools. Does that make any sense? Those are the kinds of questions that we want to ask. We're not suggesting that's the answer, but we want to raise those and say that's what that is. The third function in terms of looking at all these vacant lands is more of a town planning function. It's more of a planner, and they're separate companies or separate organizations that look at it. They deal with landscape design, they deal with septic type of things, water services, utilities, those types of things, access, looking at within the town planning documents, what are the spatial requirements for how many acres each parcel could be, and what are the potential buildings that could be built. And we're looking at a whole host of those kinds of things from, there's some sites that we think may be developed commercially. There are sites that may be developed for traditional residential homes. And there are sites that can be developed for workforce housing homes and lower priced homes. So we want to look at all three of those things and there are specific. So, and again, we want, once they do that, they can identify this type of home. Then we can start saying, okay, what's the value of these properties? The capital contribution to the town, as well as what is the longer-term tax base. Because if we're looking at other renovation projects, we want to find a funding opportunity to look and tie these two pieces together.
So is it safe to say that the $150,000 investment will not be just with one consulting firm, it may be spread across a multitude of consultants that would be specifically assigned to looking at?
There will not be one that will be able to deal with all.
And my last question, and I'm going to ask you to speculate, so you can pass on this. Do you believe that $150,000 that we invest in this will result in at least $150,000 in savings in the future if we plan things and execute things properly?
If I didn't believe that, I wouldn't be sitting here.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. Matt?
Yes, thank you. David, thank you for joining us. I believe this was probably impromptu. We probably should have structured this as a joint board presentation so that we get our own presentation as well. But thank you, and I respect your expertise, and definitely that holds a lot of credit. It's not usual that we have volunteers bring such knowledge to the table.
Everyone on our committee has
Yes,
years of expertise.
Yes.
It's incredible group.
Yes.
It really is. I'm lucky to be leading this.
Katie's analogy resonates with me about measuring twice and cutting once. But I'm a bit cynical after Academy, where we measured 50 times and put the board back down. So it's, John asked the first question I was going to ask you, but just to clarify, $150,000, the taxpayers' dollars, well spent, and you have a great report. You mentioned a lot of things, but can you clarify if that is successful? What is that deliverable? What is that packet of papers going to tell you?
It's going to tell and give us the feasibility in terms of the types of spaces that could be utilized for existing functions that are either problematic or could be improved. Right? It's also going to potentially tell us funding sources for those sites as well. So that's really the kind of the yin and yang on this whole thing. And we're really trying to tie many pieces together rather than looking at it as, you know, each individual item, because it's, you know, you look at it, each individual item, there's just too many things. But we have a shopping center. We've gone through the whole academy design, and there's a list of community functions that have been listed as desired functions. Well, we have more space in this town than would be available in the academic space. And the core question is, can some of those functions, as well as other things, be accommodated within all spent for accommodations at a much lower cost than what we were thinking of before?
So what's going to be presented to consultants is, this is a list of our needs of the town. And these are our spaces we want you to look at. Can they fit into these spots? As opposed, okay, so that's clarifying for me, because I wasn't sure if it was just for the three areas. It was just like, take a look at this and then tell us what it could be.
No, but then we want to give a list of type of functions that that we think make sense at this stage. But we also want to allow them to have an understanding of all of their town functions, because I often find that there are a lot more smarter people than I out there, and you know how to listen to them. Sometimes they, you know, a fresh set of eyes comes up and gives you a good idea.
Thank you. The second question is, I was going to ask is, we do have a town plan, but I'm hearing that we don't have in-house ability to
She's land use expert.
Okay.
She will be weighing and overseeing this, but she doesn't have the capacity to do this, nor the space, you know, analysis type of training and things like that. Very different types of skill sets.
I suspect Aaron will have a major role in the whole land use,
Yeah.
making parcels and those things.
Yeah, I was just being
Yeah.
very based on her title.
Yeah,
And so the last question is, walk us through, I guess, how, just to clarify for everybody who's going to watch this video afterwards, how does this fit into that holistic plan? Because I think some of the community members that I've heard from, they do want master plan. They don't want these one-offs. they don't want this, they don't want that, they want it, like, what are we gonna do over the next X amount of years? And it sounds like this fits in, but how does this fit into? I mean, is a deliverable of the commission, or we need another commission to come up with that
That's
master
the
plan?
charge of their.
The charge of our committee
Okay.
is to develop a master plan, and my goal is to develop a master plan by next spring. That's good, and I'm hoping that if we can get these projects going ASAP, then we can keep to that schedule. But, that's kind of personal thing for a minute.
No pressure.
You know, so I'm a big believer of keeping things on task. Good, and we really need a master plan. That's basically the thing. When you're looking at the amount of vacant space that we have in the town of Madison right now, and the amount of vacant land that the town owns. Core question is, how do you tie these pieces together to make it a much more effective opportunity for the town at a lower cost to the taxpayers?
I just would also like to highlight, this is funding coming from our planning reserve. So the whole point of that fund is to use it for these types of, analysis that we do. And this is budgeted every year. We add money every year from CIP. We just approved about up to $150,000 for the circle. So we put it into context, right? Circle is very complicated, athletic fields, coastal. You need experts in, coastal management, engineering, landscaping, field use, and architecture because of the building. So it's this fits along with that, and then all these pieces will be kind of coming together, hopefully in the spring, to try to, have this vision of how things would, move over the next 5 to 10 years. This is not improving a project. Any project's still going to need funding and then have to go through the typical process that we have here. And that's why I also say that the Ryerson money is still sitting over in the other account and it's waiting and they can't do anything with it. Timing wise, this is the time to do this because we will probably need to make some decisions by the end of this year, how we're going to proceed with the funds left over from Neck River because they're going to have to close out their accounts as they finalize this whole project. So
That's an important point to make, that's an important point to think, so if anybody's listening in on this, so this money's already been out.
yeah, it's already
Yeah,
budgeted,
this
it's
is a
using
new
it.
ask.
Yeah, this is not an appropriation, it's planning reserve.
In fact, Stacy, could you tell me what the balance is in the funding reserve, please?
Yeah, so after this 150,000, it's 78,000.
78 left.
Yes,
But that's included.
I would just-
Capital.
I just want to keep this one at a time. Go
this is
ahead.
in the planning reserve,
But the planning reserve is part of our capital projects fund.
in the financial statements.
All right, go ahead, Dave.
I would just add that the bias we have as a committee is that we don't believe in shutting down the buildings right now. Doesn't mean we don't believe in shutting them down in the future, but we're saying this process allows us to keep the buildings in good condition so that they don't create a lot of deterioration over the next 4 to 6 months while we're doing this. And so that's part of this goal, is to preserve the assets that we have, that we all have as a town, and then take action either to say this should be shut down, this should be demolished, this should be gone, this should be renovated. All that pieces all happen at the same time. And, because we're very sensitive on what happened at the tap and the kind of level of deterioration that happened by shutting a building down since 2004.
But to that,
Go ahead.
so to that point, that's where I think some community members could have a short circuit because as we're going into the school renewal and all of that, what was stated at the meetings was to demolish it, to raise the building, right? Keep the property, but raise the building. And now, after the fact, we're coming in and saying, "Look, we want to take a look. We want to take a look." So some people might say, where's the value, right? We had a decision. So it's excellent. I mean, what the bias you're bringing into that is how do we save this? How do we save this for future uses? But if the community heard we were going to raise it, and now after the fact, it's, that's just something that we have to.
The community also budgeted 1.2 million, and it's gonna be significantly more than that. Maybe the town would rather take that funds to, invest in something different, right, than just to pay to demolish.
Well,
That's
that's
a
not-
problem with flags also, yeah.
I don't want to get into too much
Yeah.
back and forth there. You ask any question you want, but to me, sometimes you just with new information, make a different decision. You're right, this is what happened, but I love the fact that we're looking at everything. I've been on this board of finance for a number of years now, and I know we have land in the I never realized we have 200 to 300 acres that possibly maybe be developed, or we have 1,200 plus acres, so there's a lot. So I agree with you, if you're just doing a part of the plan, most of, and you only build one little silo, a lot of times it's not gonna work out to the best value for your citizens. You both mentioned, maybe everybody mentioned 150,000, what do you think the return? I think the 150,000 could give you not just a financial return, right? You save money, but also a return that, brings everything together, the quality of life, and go down the list of things. I think to do this and to do it right is very important. I really do appreciate your time, and I understand. I think it was John asked about could we have somebody in house? I think it'd be really difficult to have someone in house with all these different skill sets, and not only that, when you bring somebody outside. I know you have a parameter of what you want, but they may come up with something that we haven't thought of. Say, hey, you know what do you think of this? Because they're not going to get to make the decision, you're going to give us information. So I think with all that being said, I appreciate your time, and I think this is something that we should have been doing probably in the past. I'm glad we're doing it now.
I only had one thing about the school plan. When the school plan was being put together, the academy was in play. Academy's not, right? And so that's a fundamentally very large change that happens, which I think requires the town to take some pause before they start jumping in and saying, we want to go execute a plan that may not be valid.
Just to add to that, I think, it was the Board of Education's recommendation to demolish it, but it was, you called it a plan, it was a recommendation without a plan, right? For then what? You can demolish the building all you want, but then what? And then what if we need space? And then, so I appreciate the comprehensiveness of this, and the fact that, this is money that we have in a fund for this purpose. I feel about special appropriations, Peggy, so I appreciate that, we're using money for its designed purpose, and it will give everyone better clarity. So that we're not making on-whim decisions based on something that was discussed years ago. So appreciate the thoughtfulness.
Thank you, Katie. I like that you raised your hand and just went right in.
Yep, I
That
did.
was
I
nice.
did. I'm not waiting.
Any other
3 meetings
comments?
left.
No, last comment.
Go ahead.
David, thank you.
Yeah, thank
Your
you.
commission. I mean, the work you guys are doing is it's heavy and it's much appreciated.
We appreciate it.
Generation.
We still got more to do.
Not
It's going to wrap up pretty quick.
Thank you for your
We have a-
presentation to the board of selectmen and to us tonight.
And for being here.
And as the presentation, as John mentioned, is online. I made to the board of selectmen, so if you haven't had a chance.
Listen, I think if I do anything, I'm gonna have some popcorn once this.
That's recommended. You're
Going up
entire
a-
town.
I was gonna say.
Any other comments? So we have a motion and a second to approve the, from the planning reserve, the amount of not to exceed 150,000, broken down in the 3 separate RFPs by David. And it's been seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I am
Abstentions? None opposed. We have 5 days, 1 day, 1 absent. Motion carries. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Thank you so much.
All right, we have discussed to take action to enter into a 5-year capital lease agreement with First American Bank for the purchase of the approved 2026 CIP highway equipment replacement schedule and authorizing the first selectman to sign all contracts and documents associated with the lease, which was approved by the Board of Selectmen July 7, 2025. I get that form of a motion, please. I get a second.
Second,
John, do discussion?
Question about that?
Go ahead.
Naivete is showing it perhaps, but is it more economically feasible to lease with a basically $0 in value so that, you'll own it without a buyout? Or should we just be buying it?
So the question is, we better off leasing
Is
this
it
one?
betting off leasing or just buying? I mean, I don't know. I don't know what interest
Yeah.
rates are, but.
Yeah, so
Someone
we
commented
implemented
on it.
this program maybe six years ago. We were behind the 8 ball, honestly, to try to get more for our money upfront, and this is pretty much how we've been doing. And based on the study that we got for the vehicles, we had a lot to catch up on, so this is working for highway equipment. The rates are not that bad. I mean, we go out, it's budgeted for. I can say that the police vehicles, or at least for a little bit of a shorter time, because they run a little bit harder on them. But for right now, that's the way CIP is structured. In short, we can always look to kind of look at a different.
Yeah, I'm not
That's
asking
kind
for-
of what we've been doing to kind of get caught up.
Yeah, I'm not asking for a major change, I was just curious to know if somebody has looked at the cost, amortized the costs.
But there was a
of
study,
lease
right?
A
versus-
lot of study, yeah,
Right.
big study, and we wanted to catch up on things, and we continuously update it. I know Kristen's goal has been to maybe eventually converting back to cash, but right now we're still trying to catch up and get our vehicles to a level where we want to be.
John, I think it's an excellent question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm asking about leasing versus a loan, basically, right?
So the lease is a capital lease,
It's a loan.
so we own it at the end.
Yeah, I noticed that, so.
Yeah,
qualify.
so it- yep,
There's
it
no
abs-
residual value.
Yep, it absolutely, it's a capital lease, we own it at the end of the lease, both of these, yep.
But
It's a little different.
Yes, yep.
Get it back.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's not a normal.
It's really the same as basic loaning, but it's taking a loan, but again, I don't want to perseverate about it. Might be something we look at in terms of buying, if we have cash running out.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
once we're up to where we wanna be, it's something to look at.
Thank you, guys.
As soon as you have matters.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstention, that motion carries. Discussing action to enter into a four-year capital lease agreement with First American Bank for the purchase of a group 2026 CIP police vehicle replacement schedule, authorizing the first selectman to sign all contracts and documents associated with the lease approved by the board of selectmen on July 7th, 2025. I get a second, please. Katie, second. Second, Matt. Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions, that motion carries. I know financials came out. Do you have any questions or comments on that? John? No. No. Citizens' comments. Anybody from the public would like to speak? Jean, anybody?
Nobody's raising their hand.
Second time? Third time? There'll be none. Public information session is closed. Need a motion to go into executive session to update on current and upcoming labor contract negotiations. Matt, can I get a second? Katie, all in favor? Aye. Stacy, want you to stay? And if Peggy wants to stay, she can stay.
We
Does she
also,
want to stay?
no, I'm good. We also have,
I don't know anymore.
Captain York
Yes.
and Chief Drum is also,
And
and just so you know, that Captain York is actually on vacation on a cruise ship.
Captain York, I don't know.
Hang up that phone right now.
Now,
Is he having- are they having-
Gabe, I'm sorry, and
I was gonna say,
you're on, so
yeah. Can I just say, Al Boomer wanted to join us as well, is he? Jeannie?
He's
Is she
not
not- Okay, you sent him the
He's in
information?
on. The link and some materials, yes.
Negotiating committee? Resume recording. We need someone to say words that were here.
Sure.
Just the members that were here, the time we're in, the time we're out. No question.
Second, notice, out, I guess.
All right, so we're out of executive session at 8:28, back in Board of Finance. Madison is now back in session. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Wow, that's fast. Second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night, Jude.
At
Good night, all.
Good night, thank
Good
you.
night, thanks, yep.
Thank you.